Hey everybody, welcome to the first episode of the Have You Ever Played podcast. I'm Matt, aka Matt Fondude on Twitch, Twitter, and whatever other social media website you can find me at. And I'm with my co-host James here, and James is going to introduce himself.
I'm James. James04E. It's the letter O, number 4, letter E, on Twitter, Instagram, and whatever other social media I feel like using on any given day.
Yeah, now this is the first episode of the podcast, technically episode 0, just based on how we're going to be setting these episodes up. So I think it would be smart to take some time to explain the general idea and format of what we're going for with the HYEP almost hype podcast. Basically, we wanted it to be kind of this book club for games. So we're going to be taking games that we have played, or maybe one of us has played, and we're going to be revisiting them and talking about our experiences. So in this initial episode, we kind of want to talk about our memories of a game, and today's game is going to be Portal 1, and we're going to be talking about our memories and anything we think about when we talk about this game. And in future episodes, we're going to kind of go chapter by chapter if it's a longer game, or for this game, we might be able to finish the whole game in one sitting, and we'll be able to talk about our experiences as we go. And other episodes might include, some topics episodes. We might have some potential guests, but we're feeling it out. And yeah, just like how the developers were feeling out this first-person puzzle shooter.
Yeah, indeed. So let's talk a little bit about what Portal actually is for some of you that may not know it very well. Portal is a puzzle platform game that was released on October 10th, 2007 by Valve. The game puts players in the shoes of Chell, who must solve a series of puzzles given to her by an AI named GLaDOS using a portal gun. And actually,
See,
the team that
well,
worked on Portal, they
to
were,
interrupt,
yeah,
it could be Glad OS
Glad
or Glad
OS.
DOS, if you will.
Yes, there are multiple arguments that can be made about the organization of the name and what it truly means. But yeah, so the team that worked on Portal was primarily made up of students from DigiPen Institute of Technology, and they made a game called Narbacular Drop as their senior project. And the game actually shared a lot of similarities with Portal, including the iconic portal gun, which makes Portal a sort of spiritual successor to it. And an interesting fact about Narbacular Drop is the word Narbacular is not an actual word. They actually made up that word so it would be easy to search. So nobody can tell you that you're pronouncing Narbacular incorrectly because it's not a word.
Hmm.
There's no official
Yeah, it's not
pronunciation.
part of the vernacular, Narbacular.
Yeah,
Uh,
a
so
Narbacular vernacular.
you said it's more as a spiritual successor, but is it basically like a prototype for what Portal would become later?
Yeah, you can sort of consider it that. Yeah, so the nature of Narbacular Drop wasn't really like a. It obviously wasn't like a fully shipped game. Like it's sort of indie thing. You know, they made their own. I guess you could call it a little studio, seeing as it was a senior project, so it wasn't like an official thing necessarily. But
Hmm.
yeah, they kind of took lots of the mechanics from Narbacular Drop. Not so much the story aspects. The story for that game was it was something. It had the player playing as Princess No Knees,
Oh,
because he was actually unable to jump, did
that
not
makes
have the
sense.
knees required for vertical acceleration. We will say,
And
um,
propulsion, yeah.
yeah, but Valve kind of saw the game, thought, hey, this is cool. We want to like make a full like real game. We'll fully back it. Join our team and let's make this work.
Well, you
Yeah, it
see,
was
I
really
think
cool.
that's the thing about Valve, right? It's like they'll take a concept or they'll take a mod or a game and they'll really put that special like touch on it that really just adds so much to a game. And I think in order to talk about Portal, you really have to talk about the orange box where it was
Yeah,
included in. And I think that's kind of a large part of why people even played Portal in the first place or have heard about it because it was bundled in with, one of the all-time like greatest games of all time, Half-Life 2 and
yeah,
Team Fortress 2 and like all these just like fantastic games, and you're just like, "Oh, I'll just play Portal. I got this other game." And I think that just really contributed to its success. I mean, that's how I played Portal. I ended up getting the orange box pretty young, and that's kind of when I got Steam as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember I got the orange box. I actually had it on Xbox 360. And
See,
I remember like I first just played Team Fortress 2 and I'm like, wow, this feels like it almost feels like I'm not supposed to be playing this on a controller, but like, it's fun, but something felt a little bit off. And I remember I tried Portal. I was awful at video games back then. And I think there was a certain point where I got stuck and I was like, I like think I like made a portal on the ground and the ceiling, like that thing where you keep going. And I didn't know how to get
mhm.
myself out, so I just quit.
You just turn the game off. You just turn off the
Yeah.
Xbox. It just starts overheating. Just red ring. Just, oh
Yeah.
god, why did I plug this in my console?
Yeah, the Xbox's GPU just starts melting.
I cannot imagine playing any like Valve game on a console. Like I know there's been
Yeah.
ports. Like even Half-Life 2 and Half-Life 1 have had
Oh.
like PS1 and I think PS2 ports.
Oh
Or I
yeah,
think actually, yeah,
I played the CS:GO Xbox 360 port once.
I didn't even know that they made that.
Yeah, it was something. Same feeling as Team Fortress 2 where like I felt like I'm not supposed to be doing this, but also like it was just the whole game isn't it's just not built around it. Like
Now, I think
everything just felt weird.
I think that the servers are still actually online for TF2 on Xbox because I think I've seen people play it, and it's like a
Hmm.
weird time capsule because they don't have it's just all vanilla weapons. There's no hats, and in
Yeah.
some ways, it's almost the purest way to play that game nowadays.
Oh
That is
man,
pretty
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, I actually remember when um I first played TF2 on Xbox obviously, but I switched to PC when it became free. And I remember I started up the game and I'm like, why are all these people using these weird weapons? Like what's going on? And then
That's pretty
I
late.
realized like, yeah, it was definitely a bizarre transition.
Yeah, the free to play transition that seems pretty late into TF2 actually. When was that, like 2010 or something like that?
Yeah, it was like 2010.
Yeah, that feels like there was a really long time that you would have to buy the game, and that's the part of
Yeah.
the orange box where you would have I don't know you'd had to like buy it and then you would get all these different games or whatever. I actually remember now that I'm talking about the orange box, the only reason I ended up getting it was because of Gmod and watching Gmod videos online on
Hmm.
YouTube. I would watch all the like idiot box and stuff like that, and I was just like, oh, well, okay, I have to buy the orange box to get Half Life to play Gmod. Oh, what are these other random games? Which of course became like some of my favorite games of all time, putting like
Hmm.
thousands of hours into TF2, and then like Portal, of course, which we're talking about. And honestly, I liked Portal when it came out. Like right when I played it, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a little hard, and also, I mean, it's a short game, and that's kind of
Yeah.
why next episode will probably have already beaten the game. I think it's like a 3 hour game, and
Yeah, something like that, like super short.
yeah,
Especially
and
if you already know what you're doing. So
oh yeah, well, I don't remember. I last time I played the game was like 2013. I was looking at my Steam.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like more know what you're doing in the sense that not me making portals to the ceiling and the floor and getting stuck.
Oh yeah, and having the wherewithal to continue playing and not turn off your computer at the first
Yes.
sign of adversity.
Yes, that'd be very helpful.
Yeah,
It's a great tip.
I almost can't imagine playing Portal nowadays without knowing about like just going in completely unaware of what you're about to get into. It just seems so like ubiquitous in like gaming, like the portal
Yeah,
gun. It just makes sense.
it's such a like you. It's very hard to know a decent amount about video games and not know about Portal.
Yeah, and I think I believe in the developer commentary, which they used to include in a lot of the Valve games. I think they might
Hmm.
still include it. They just don't release that many games, do
Yeah,
they?
yeah.
Yeah, I believe they were talking a lot about how playtesters were getting confused on like who they were and like what was going on and all that. So that's why that first test chamber, which I guess we'll see on revisit, is designed in such a way where you see your character. You only have access to one of the portals on the portal gun
Hmm.
for a little bit. I think that's in the first game.
Yeah,
Um,
I believe that is the case. I think in the
yeah,
second game, I think you also have a mirror or something in the second game at the
yeah, I
start.
think it's really important that you see yourself in the
Yeah.
game, so you can kind of ground yourself in like what's going on. And I believe they also had fall damage originally, which was just like, I mean, people, or there might have not been fall damage, but your character didn't have anything that showed that they took fall damage. So like, there's the long fall boots now that Shell wears, which is just like, okay, you don't take fall damage because you're wearing boots. But originally, I think there was nothing, and people were just like very confused. But when they threw some boots on her, they're like, all right, that makes sense.
Yeah, he doesn't just have very strong legs.
Yeah, just like never skipped a leg day in her life.
Like they can just tank the entire impact of a plethora of seconds under gravity.
Oh yeah, just going 100,000 miles an hour into like a concrete floor
Yeah.
and being completely fine.
Just shake it off.
Yeah, but speaking kind of to your first experiences with the game, do you remember what you thought of, like, I guess the overall game? Like, did you know in the moment you're playing something like, "Oh, this feels like it's a special kind of game with like the narrative and GLaDOS just, like you kind of have that immediate Valve touch that's kind of hard to describe."
hmm I think like what people would describe as the Valve Touch is like I think they keep it very simple. Not necessarily in the sense that like their games don't have complexity to it, but they give you like a set of mechanics, and the entire game encourages you to like really do something with them.
Hmm.
Like it's like the mechanics aren't just you do X to get Y. It's like you do X and you can get like A B C D E F G, like just depending on the situation. And I think
Yeah,
that's
and
like
mhm.
that's what makes them really special.
And I guess there's not a lot of spectacle in Portal outside of you have a portal gun. Like they don't introduce too many mechanics to you.
hmm
They really just focus on introducing you to your basic mechanic and trying to come up with as many ways to utilize that portal gun as possible. And I think that would be fun enough. Like if you just had a puzzle game, like I mean, it's whatever. People might forget it, but I think just the narrative of the game and having GLaDOS be there, and it's a funny game. It's
Yeah.
interesting. There's like you're kind of engaged in the world of what's going on, and I think that really like ties you in. And I think we can look at games like the recent Back for Blood versus Left 4 Dead and compare those directly because the same team kind of worked on them. And you
hmm
play Left 4 Dead, you have this whole rich tapestry of characters that are all super interesting and have their own thing going on. And then Back for Blood, I've played a little bit of that, and it's like, okay, we have gameplay spectacle and card systems, but where's the heart of the characters? You know what I mean? Like, and that's
Yeah.
the thing Valve I think captures like better than any other studio.
Yeah. I think what's very interesting about that is it's a really good way to make sure your game like lasts a long time, so you don't have to fundamentally rework much down the line. So it's like people joke that Valve doesn't uh do much. They don't release new games and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And some
just
games go
just
without
Steam,
patches, but like
one of the
yeah, but
largest systems for games.
yeah, I mean, I think it's like the fact that games like TF2 still have such a loyal fan base, even though they don't necessarily get the attention that some other modern games would. I think that's really a testament to how good they are at just making like just a good game, like right off the bat.
Hmm. And not to jump too far ahead, but speaking a little bit of Portal 2, because Portal 1 was out and you could just buy it when I was playing it, and I played it, really thought it was good, and Portal 2, on the other hand, was something I had to wait for to come out. So just
Yeah,
like the hype surrounding a new Valve game is like this crazy amount of like hype because they don't really release games that often. And there's
yeah,
just this huge like whole like undescribable amount of energy around those releases, and just like you're gonna get something good unless it's a game called Artifact. But that was that's kind of modern Valve being like, all right, we're gonna release a game, and it's got to be this infinity money treadmill competitive kind of game,
yeah.
in
It
some way.
was Artifact was weird. It was kind of I the way I think about it. I actually think it was a little uncharacteristic of Valve because they were kind of trying to get in on the card game thing.
Hmm.
I give them a pass with that one generally, but I think it's when people talk about like the hype around Valve games, it's trust. It's knowing that like if they release something, they're confident it's going to be great because if you've ever like seen those interviews of like why they haven't released Half-Life 3, right? It's like the expectations are crazy. It's not if they drop anything lower than the expectations, which are quite literally growing by like the day, then it's below their standard. Like they set their standard where the community sets their standard.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think the same thing with Portal 3 and like if we're gonna revisit a Portal 3 in the future. I think we'll probably get one. It's kind of interesting. Valve uses the Portal like IP whenever they have some sort of new tech demo they want to show off. Like
Hmm.
there's a ton of spin-offs, like the Bridge Constructor game, which isn't really a tech demo, that's more of a spin-off app. And then recently on the Steam Deck, there's the whole Aperture Test Lab game where it just shows you how to use your Steam Deck. And that was kind of a cool re-dive into the Portal universe. And I believe they also, for their VR, they also have like a Portal tech demo or something like that. They really, if they ever need to show something off, they use the Portal a lot, and I think that's pretty cool. And
Yeah.
yes, yeah, I think they revisit that franchise quite a bit for those little kind of mini moments, more so than other franchises, or more so than other IPs that they have.
I think it's definitely. I, I think part of it is that's one of their more like modern IPs, I guess.
Hmm.
It like it's just getting its start in 2007. Um, I mean, like if you really want to talk about like the latest like full new IP technically that they've released, you could argue Dota 2, but that was nobody Dota VR would just be a little bizarre. I feel like it's not a universe you can just jump into necessarily like you can with Portal.
Maybe we should get into your history with Dota 2 a little bit, just for context for the listeners at home. I think we should,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah, I'm a big Dota fan. I have like cutting off a little bit of hours from just having the game open. It's like 6,000 hours. Um, yeah, especially during like high school and college, I played that game just a ton. Um, wasn't wasn't always a good thing.
Yeah,
Definitely was not
I
always a good thing how much I played that game, but yeah, I love the game. It's a really good game.
yeah, I've given that game a chance. I've put like 200 hours into it. I'm awful. Not the kind of game for me, but I think that kind of is going to work in our favor in a way. This is getting into a little bit of the podcast minutia because this is the first episode. We don't really know what the format's going to be. We're trying to like play things out. And if you're listening this far, thank you and we appreciate you. But yeah, maybe we should get into a little bit about the kind of games we like to play and why we chose Portal as a good medium between our interests. Because I know personally, I like to play a lot of kind of indie games, a lot of like eclectic, different games. I'm all over the place. I can kind of talk about some games I've recently been playing. I've been playing Omori, which is this really, really great like JRPG style uh like RPG game, and I've been playing a ton of like JRPGs recently. The Yakuza franchise, just bouncing around, playing lots of. I mean, I play a lot of random different games. Like I love the Soul series, any of those kind of games, Castlevania, Metroidvania stuff, and that's kind of like my world. Um, and I think James kind of has a very different games list, which he can go over.
Yeah, we do have a bit of overlap with like Dark Souls and stuff like that, but for me, obviously there's Dota. Also really into Apex Legends. Um, and I've been getting into roguelikes recently as well. Like I completed, I guess technically not completed because you have to beat it multiple times, but I beat Hades for the first time recently. And I've actually been getting into Cult of the Lamb as well. It's a really cool game. But yeah, generally I think like I lean a lot more towards action games, but um, especially like for single player stuff. But for multiplayer, I do get a little bit more into, I guess not like full strategy games, but like kind of hybrid strategy games. Like because obviously I'm not out here playing StarCraft or anything. It's not my personal preference. It's a bit there's a lot going on, but um, yeah, I think like as far as like balance, Dota's just about perfect for me. Apex Legends also has like a decent amount of strategy to it.
It's so funny though too, because it's just like I really don't like battle royale games that much, and I don't uh like Dota styled games like MOBAs and too. So I think we are kind of a good pairing of like a general taste of gaming, and I think
Hmm.
the format of Have You Ever Played will work well because we can really challenge each other on game genres we don't usually play, and I think Portal was a really good pick for the first game because we are both familiar with it, and it's such a short game that like we can really experience it in a short amount of time and really get like dive into like every aspect of it. And I think it's one of those things like going back to that Valve magic. It's just so nostalgic for anyone who has played it and just holds like a very special place. And like it's just instantly like, oh, I would love to play Portal. Like I was talking to someone today about the podcast, a potential future guest, by the way. About the
Ooh,
podcast, and their immediate response is like, "Oh, I would love to jump in on that Portal 1 podcast." Like I think if you've played video games, you've probably have played a Portal. And yeah, I
yeah,
think it's just a
definitely.
perfect first game.
Yeah, I guess what's also interesting with the games that I like now is I'm a bit of a convert, I guess you could say. I used to be more into like fighting games and like obviously everybody plays most people play like a little bit of first person shooters, so I did do that a little bit. But like MOBAs and BRs, like I'm even still not too crazy about BRs in general, but Apex Legends, like the concept of the game and the actual gameplay really caught my attention.
Mhm.
And then for Dota, I actually remember, sheesh, this was like 2013 or 2014 that like some of my friends or some of our friends, I guess, got me into it. Uh, Mostly because it was free. Yeah, I was
They
like,
didn't know
if
what
you're
they
gonna
were
get me
doing.
into if you're gonna get me into a new game, you can't be asking me to pay that much. Like, I'm not
Yeah,
gonna, I'm
I'll
not
pay
gonna,
about free.
yeah, I'm not gonna gamble my money. I'm not gonna gamble my $60 on a game I might not even like. It's like when I think it was Battlefield 2042, whatever
Oh god.
the newest one. I remember
Yeah.
everybody was telling me like, James, you gotta get the new Battlefield. I'm like, I don't know. I've been looking at these reviews. I value my $60. That's not
Yeah, when I
cheap.
saw people swimming through the environment, just swimming through rocks, I'm like, yeah, I'll pass this game. I
Yeah,
think I'll take the L. That could be an interesting uh
yeah.
that could be an interesting podcast in the future. Playing these single player game first person shooters. Let's playing these single player campaigns from first person shooters because
Oh
I have not
yeah,
done a lot of that.
yeah. Like Battlefield 3 and like 4 had
Hmm.
some. They were interesting. It was like those games were interesting because it wasn't Bad Company, right? And that was
Hmm.
like Dice's main um single player experience. Battlefield was previously just primarily multiplayer. So when they're getting into the single player stuff, especially like more modern things, they can't really base it around the like comedy like Bad Company is. It was very interesting some of the things that they tried to go for, especially since it was much more grounded in reality than Call of Duty maybe because you can't just blow everything up all the time if you're trying to be realistic. It's
Yeah.
consequences and stuff.
All
It doesn't
right,
work like
James.
that.
We'll save that for the the Shooty McShooty episode. Um, but I think we're reaching a good point to maybe go into the next segment of the podcast, something that I've been very passionate about and am looking forward to the future of, and that would be the viewer mail segment. And because this is
Ooh,
episode 0, we technically don't have any viewer mail. So if you want to send us an email, please send us an email to the HYEP podcast at gmail.com. That's HYEP podcast at gmail.com. And you know
yep.
what, James?
Podcast at gmail
Yeah,
dot com.
the He Up podcast. It's almost hype. That's gonna be a tagline later
Yeah.
on. I'll put that on a t-shirt. The almost hype podcast. He Up.
Yep.
All right. So I wrote some questions, and if you want to pretend they're from people, I can give you fake names too. So John
Yeah.
wrote into the show and said, "What games would you like to cover on this show?" So James, what games would you love to cover on this show?
Ooh, that is a good question. I think I need to get into more indie games just in general. So I mean, obviously you're into those, so I think it would come naturally. Maybe we cover more of those in the show. But yeah, I mean, like yeah, the extent of my indie game experience is mostly roguelikes. You know, I would also like to get
Mhm.
out of that indie game genre. You know, see what else is really out there.
Yeah, I would love I'm just thinking of it in terms of games I would love to see you play, which is just like I kind of want to do like I want to somehow get an MMO into this format, which is like insane because like how do you
Yeah.
finish an MMO? But like I feel like that could be a fun future thing. And
Hmm.
I'm just thinking of other games where it's just like these weird kind of niche games, like some like PSP Japan Studios games come to mind. Like I
Yeah.
would be like, there's a game called like it's like the Badman series or something. It's called like what did I ever
Batman.
do to deserve this, my lord? Like 1 through 3 or something like that.
Hmm.
It's like this game where you control a dungeon and you like spawn mobs and have to like it's so hard to describe, but you basically
Yeah.
like are you're the villain in a JRPG sort of. It's really cool and
Oh.
I think doesn't get enough credit. And there's so many like niche games like that, especially on the PSP that like no one's played. Like Ape Escape, there's like an RPG called Ape Quest. It's like a JRPG where you play as an ape and it's so weird. It's just like imagine cartoony Ape Escape graphics, but mixed with like hyper realistic generic JRPG like Unity models that you fight, and
Sheesh.
it also with Mario Party mini games and like random scenarios. It's so weird.
Yeah, that is definitely a lot of stuff. You know, I actually had a PSP, but I only
Mhm.
played the normie stuff. You know, I played some. It was like a Dragon Ball Z fighting game. I forget exactly what it was. It was
Probably
like
like a
a
Budokai kind of game.
yeah, it was like on the Budokai. I remember like the story mode. It was like there was one island and it was like a semi open world. It was kind of weird.
And
Just like
not to
run into
confuse
people.
our fans from the UK, that would be Dragon Ball Z for any any of our
Dragon Ball
fans.
Z.
Yeah. Um, All right, moving swiftly on. Joey Jojo asks, "What's your earliest gaming memory?"
I can go first for this one. So,
Hmm.
um, when I was really young, like in preschool, we had a PS2 and a GameCube, and so I have an older brother, and then I have an even older stepbrother, and those both belong to him.
Hmm.
And so I remember they played like Jack and Daxter, um, Dragon Ball Budokai 3, I believe. Um, it was some Naruto game on GameCube. I can't remember. It was a two. It wasn't the first one. It was two. Um, and I remember like watching them play. They did the classic like, you know, yeah, you're playing even though the controller isn't plugged in thing. Um, and then
Oh, they just
eventually they did let me play.
the little brother mode.
Yeah, the little brother mode. It was very interesting when they were playing single player games, and I did some
I'm
mental
helping.
gymnastics. Yeah, I did some mental gymnastics to make myself feel like I was actually playing a video game.
Yeah, see that coin in Mario? That's you.
Yeah,
Press A to spin. I'm helping.
yeah, definitely helping.
Yeah, I feel like my gaming memory is kind of interesting because my first video game that I really played was on the NES, and that's Mario 1 and Mario 3 and like Duck Hunt, like those games. And that
Hmm.
was just because we had an NES that was like given to us by some relation in the family. They just like left it at our house. I don't remember exactly how we got it. Um, but if you're ever have used an NES, you'll know that they are a pain in the ass to set up. You need to like depending on your cable setup. The way I had it, we had to plug it into our cable box basically and like unscrew things and like screw things together, and it was annoying to set up. And I'm playing Mario 3 at age like 3 probably, and it's just like it's not happening. Like that game is so tough. Like even now,
Damn.
yeah, so I'm playing these like super hard games, and eventually I would get the PS2 as my own like first console or whatever. And the first game I buy for PS2 is actually a PS1 game called Rayman 1, which actually that's a game that I will talk about on this podcast for sure and you will definitely
Man,
play.
Rayman.
That game is really hard as well. So picture
Hmm.
child me like crying into an NES pad playing Mario 3 and then booting up like I got my own game for kids. And, like putting on Rayman 1, this like
Yeah,
notoriously hard like platforming game that's like almost unfinished in its difficulty. And I literally just remember like trying to beat the first boss and then just like crying and like
yeah.
falling asleep behind a
It's
chair.
like it's like the kid version of Dark Souls.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, it's like the Dark Souls of platforming, of
The
French
Dark Souls of
platformers.
platformers.
Yeah. Oh my god. Now that, yeah, just like hard games early on. Maybe that's why I
Mm,
like certain hard, I guess, considered games.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I guess what genre? This is from Steven fake name. Um,
Steven fake name. It's a great
yes,
name.
it's kind of weird how his name is that, and he's also
Yeah,
not a real person.
it's very
Uh,
bizarre.
so he asks, "What game genre have you not really played that much?" And I think we talked about
Ooh.
this a little bit earlier.
So for me, I actually slayed this beast recently. I got into one of these Forex games.
Oh yeah,
I like recently played Endless Space 2 actually. So one
not
of
to
my friends
interrupt,
like,
but can you further explain what a Forex game is? I've heard the term, but I kind of forget.
oh god, I need
Or
to
give
look it up again.
examples of
Yeah, like it's
like
like
games.
the Civilization games, Stellaris, Age of Wonders, stuff like that. So the 4X is actually explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate.
Okay.
And so yeah, they're generally in like it's a subgenre of strategy games, pretty much. Um, but yeah, I remember I played. One of my friends got me to play Endless Space 2, and it was like it was weird because it would just drop me in some random place in like in a galaxy and say like yeah make it work.
That would be
And
the
it's like
endless space, the titular
yeah,
endless space.
oh yeah, they put me in some sort of endless space.
Yeah, I mean you get what you buy in that game.
Yeah. I remember I played Cravers, which was like this like alien uh alien like disease race or something, like they like infected planets and stuff, and they were all about war. Like, you just find a planet, you just declare war on them. You don't do any sort of politics or anything like that. And it was great. Didn't have to think very hard.
Yeah, I can't say that I have played many 4X games, or as I refer to them as just maps, just looking at maps a lot of
Yeah.
times. I know a lot of our friends are very into those games.
Yeah.
I would say probably my genre would maybe be racing or real time strategy. I have not played really a lot of either of those. I
Hmm.
feel like I could get into racing games if I had a wheel and like pedal setup, like the full like setup, and maybe
Oh
like in
yeah,
VR.
definitely.
Like I think that would be a lot of fun. I just don't want to play with like a controller or like a keyboard. I just don't think like that same thing with simulation. Like I think I would really like to play like a flight sim with like the full control scheme. You know what I mean?
Yeah, with an actual plane.
Yes, with an actual. I would like to have a VR headset on while I'm flying a Boeing, right? And then just like, wow, this is so realistic.
Yeah, all these people are sitting behind me promising it's not real. So like, if I make a mistake and crash, everything's fine.
Yeah. Well, oh my god. Yeah. So, that's sorry. That threw me off. I had this whole train of thought. I felt like I was doing pretty well, just keeping it together. just that threw me so through a loop. Oh man. Yeah. Those are pretty. I think those are probably my very least played. Although I'm sure there's stuff that I can't even think of that it's just like I haven't really played.
Yeah, I haven't
Anything that
played.
makes me use my brain too hard, you know.
Yeah, I haven't played racing games or anything like that in a while. Played some when I was younger because like my uncle had an Xbox, and that was like one of like the original Xbox, and that was one of the few games that he had. And I remember like I
Mhm.
saw him playing it, and like he just let me like hop on. It was really weird. Like
I
it
think
was like
we're gonna have a big conversation about early consoles because I never have owned an Xbox in my entire life. I've only had
yeah.
PlayStation consoles and Nintendo consoles, and I think there will be a talking point there. I'm assuming you are probably fond of Halo from playing it.
Yes. Actually, the funny thing about that is, so I didn't actually own my own like original Xbox. I did get an Xbox 360 in like 2009 or something. So technically, the first Halo game I actually played was Halo 3. I went back and played Halo 1 and 2 with the Master Chief Collection, but it was
Mhm.
weird. I just kind of hopped into Halo 3 and I'm like, wow, yeah, this is happening. I'm not going to ask any questions. This is cool.
Yeah. All right. I think that's probably good for this first episode. And you know what? I'm proud of us. We made it through it. We did it. I think we did a pretty okay job. And if you're listening this far, hello. Thank you for listening to our
Hello.
episode 0 of the podcast. I'm sure there's many things we can improve on. Please let us know in whatever comment form you can comment on. This will probably be on the YouTube at some point, and then I will be sending it onto everywhere you can get podcasts. So like Spotify, etc. That's where I get my podcasts.
Yes, sir.
Um, but yeah, I think this has been pretty good. I am been Matt Fondude on every social media platform. Check me out on Twitter. Check me out on Twitch. Most importantly, I'll be streaming. Probably be streaming Portal One. I'm going to be trying to stream each of these games that we have been discussing, and you can get some extra thoughts there before our next episode. And James, do you want to plug anything? Do you want to plug any of your social media?
Yeah, it's just James O4E, the letter O, the number 4, and the letter E on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch if I ever want to stream, YouTube. Uh, insert social media platform here, and it's probably my name.
All right, and that's it. We're signing off. Goodbye.
Goodbye.